Hello, everyone. My name is Brandon Jewell, and I am with the CTE Foundation. And today I am here with Nate Friar, who is a regional project manager at St. Joseph Health. Nate, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So, a regional project manager at St. Joseph Health, do you mind explaining what that means and what you do on a daily basis?
Sure. So, regional project manager, the Northern California region consists of 5 hospitals. And so my job is to do projects that work on all 5 of the hospitals. So for instance, one of the projects I'm working on right now is a command center, which helps with patient flow. So getting patients between our different hospitals, between different departments within the hospital. Let's say somebody needs to get imaging or something like that. It helps get them through there in a timely manner, just to make sure that they're not in the hospital longer than they need to be. And it also deals with transfers in. So if a hospital reaches out to us and they need to transfer someone in who needs a higher level of care, it smooths that process as well. So there's other projects I work on, like access projects. Those are projects where it's making sure the patient can get into our hospitals or into our medical group to see maybe a primary physician or a specialty physician, get images in a timely fashion so that people aren't waiting for long periods of time to get the help that they need.
So you're sort of on a business and coordination side of the hospital.
Yeah, completely business side. I don't do any patient care, so more work on the business planning side. If we want to add like a new line of business, we would go through the business plan to see if it's viable for our area, things like that. So not really a patient care side.
So how did you get into your career that you're in right now?
Yeah, that's kind of a long story because I didn't really plan to get into healthcare. I guess we can go back to when I was in high school. When I got out of high school, all I wanted to do was play baseball. So when I went to college, I got asked to go to Chabot to play college baseball, and got injured, couldn't play anymore. So I ended up going back home, got a job at Bank of America where I could sit because it was a knee injury that I had, so I had to sit, and I was a teller, and I did well in it, so they promoted me to personal banker. When I was a personal banker, I did well there too, so they promoted me to small business banker. I did well there as well, so they had me move to personal banker and then to assistant manager. And then I got to a point where I was ready to get out of the banking center. And what I found was that all the jobs outside of the banking center were you had to have at least your BA, if not your master's. And so I was kind of stuck in the banking center. So I decided to stop working at Bank of America. I went back to school full time, focused on that. Went to the Santa Rosa Junior College, which is a good college. I honestly feel like it was harder than the 4-year college I went to, but went there. And while I was going there, I started getting involved in an organization called 2030, which is a nonprofit that gives back to at-risk and needy youth. When I got involved with the nonprofit, there's events we do to raise money. And there's an upper leadership that of the guys who've been there for the most amount of time. And they ask you to help out with events just because part of the organization is building leaders within the community that are actually in the organization. And so they ask you to do tasks. And I was always raising my hand to do the task, got them done to the best of my ability. Guys got confident in me and felt like they could refer me for jobs. So when it was time for me to get a job, I went to the guys and said, hey, look, I'm looking I want to get back into work. I've ran through my savings, so it's time. And so within a week, I had an interview at Santa Rosa Chamber. A week after that, I was hired and started doing event management and did that for about 3 years. And then was ready for a change. So I reached out to the guys again and said, hey, look, I'm ready for a change. And a buddy of mine sat on one of the boards for our local hospital here, Memorial. And when I reached out to him, but they're like, you know what, the person we promoted was an event manager here. If you want to do that, you can get your foot in the door, kind of learn the ropes, and then maybe when another position opens, you can go into that. So I did. And so I started looking around the organization for other positions, and then the fires happened. And when the fire happened, the 2017 fire happened, we had 162 employees and physicians lose their home. And so the upper management was worried about them potentially leaving the area because they didn't have a place to live. So they asked for volunteers to help with the housing program to make sure they're all housed in temporary housing until they figured out what they were going to do. So I raised my hand, said I'd manage it, and it kind of got me on the radar of our CEO for our local hospital Memorial. And so I worked with him pretty closely, 6 to 8 months, and then the hospital hit kind of a rocky spot where they had to do layoffs. And so when they do layoffs, they usually lay off non-essential workers. And so at that point, I was considered a non-essential worker. So the CEO for Memorial, he reached out to me and said, "Hey, look, we got to find you a position in a week. If we don't find you a position, then we have to lay you off." And I was like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Let me do some calls and get back to you." So a day later, he got back to me and said, I talked to all like some region people. They said, "You know what, let's build a position for him within strategy. We're going to call it interim for now because it's not a real position, but we just want to keep him on." So they did. I got into the true project management role within the region under strategy as an interim. Did that for about a year, and finally they're like, "You know what, we want to keep you. We're just going to turn this into a position." So this is a real position now, and that's what I've been in ever since.
There's a couple really important things I think you mentioned. Is one, your past just is a handful of different types of jobs and different types of positions. I mean, from baseball to banking to event management, project management. But I think what's great to note there is that you did really well at whatever was given to you, and you worked hard enough to work your way up to the point where, and this is the second thing, is that the hospital, when facing layoffs, recognized that you as an individual was worth keeping, to the point where they literally created a position for you. I mean, that's impressive.
Totally. Yeah, I felt very fortunate that they were willing to do that. And really what I feel like it went to is it was just my ability to raise my hand and say, "Hey, I'm willing to do more work than what you're paying me to do," for two reasons. One, because I wanted to learn and I wanted to build my skill set for my next step in my career. And two, I wanted to network. So I wanted to get involved with as many people as possible so that they could see what my skills were.
Right. And I think that goes for the Active 2030 Club that you mentioned as well. Is every time you needed something, you raised your hand and said, "I'll jump at that and I'll do that." Which leads me to my next question. Is you had mentioned before that in order to continue to grow within St. Joseph Health, you have to get your master's. Are you on any sort of path to do that right now?
Yeah, I actually started my master's program through Washington State University. They have an online program. And really that's not even just within St. Joseph Health, that's within the healthcare industry in general. If you want any kind of leadership position within healthcare on the business side, and I mean, really on the clinical side too, but on the business side, you have to have your master's because everyone coming into that position has a master's. They didn't even look at you. Actually, there was a couple jobs that I applied for within the region when I was considered interim. And luckily I'd known the hiring managers. So at that point, when I found out I didn't get the job, I reached out to them and said, "Hey, how can I make myself better?" And they're like, "Honestly, the only thing you didn't have was master's. Everyone else had their master's. Your skill level was either at the same skill level or maybe even above, but the master's is what made us choose that person because it's just kind of a requirement that's within our industry." So I was like, "Oh, okay." So that's really what pushed me to get my master's.
Out of all of what you went through, what's one piece of advice that you can give to the high school students that right now are starting to chart their own path and explore some careers?
I would say if I could do it over again, I would go back. I would go to college immediately out of high school and I would stick in college until I was done, because the the payoff is just tenfold. It's a lot of work when you're in it, but the benefits when you get out of it are so massive, and you really see that once you get to a position where you're like, where you can actually, where you're almost stuck and can't get to the next level. You really start to learn that when you get there. So if you can miss that phase altogether, it's huge, and it really increases your ability to earn more money, and to be able to do what the things you want to do. The other piece of advice I'd have is, I wish I knew now, or I wish I knew then what I know now about money. Um, when I got out of, when I went to Bank of America, they were paying me well, and they were paying the money I was making. I wasn't saving it or using it to invest and make more money. I was buying stupid things like nice cars, and just going out to eat all the time, and just buying stuff that I didn't need to buy. It wasn't doing anything for me really. Um, and I see that now. And at this point, like, one of the things that I would like to do is I'd like to start investing in real estate. And I know that if at that time, if I wouldn't have been spending my money on the dumb things that I was spending on, I'd probably have 3 or 4 rental houses right now already, just from saving money and trying to invest it and make money for me. So that would be the other piece of advice I would give to the younger me, or the kid who's in a junior or a senior going to get into college.
And that's a really good life lesson. So
Totally.
I really appreciate you taking the time with us today. And thanks for telling us your story and your advice. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.